Ayete Abashongo la tumis Abashongo la tumis Abashongo wesuleli phezu Bathi ushilo bandabagasho.
The AmaZulu King has been hailed as a great king and a solid bond uniting his people. The historian Mr. Kalosi Ramkhual shared the historic links between the people of the Kingdom of Lesotho and the Kingdom of AmaZulu.
Dr. Peter Siboni, a historian, a South African historian himself, in his researches finds that actually the Basotho used to send military expatriates to Natal to instruct the Zulu warriors on what was called mounted warrior warfare. So they were the ones that were introduced horses to the Zulus and guns, and they would tell them, guys, this thing of these huge fronts no longer works because these guys have got cannons and are going to decimate you, you know. So there was a relationship that was ongoing even beyond King Shaka. Monarchy is the very essence of the national existence of the African people because it is their socio-economic formation administration. Monarchy is the fiber that holds the nations, African nations, especially Bantu nations, are very monarchic. It's the very essence of their existence. Now, what has happened is that, yes, monarchy has been threatened because, for example, in Lesotho, the British after 1868, after they took over the reins, they found out of the so-called protectorate that actually now was becoming a colony. Because the deal between the British and Mushosho was clear. You just hold off the Boers. Otherwise we are okay here. You know what I mean? Do not interfere with my way of governance, etc. So, yes, monarchy is in trouble, has been in trouble for a while. In fact, the fact that monarchy still exists anywhere in Africa, it's a miracle. Especially in Southern Africa. And I'm personally very proud of the Zulu monarchy and the Swazi monarchy. To a large extent they have retained, of course not in different degrees, but the culture that you see, the ability to mobilize their nations, those two kings are, I think, in fact the culture, because it has retained the culture of those people. You see it in their manner of dress. They are not ashamed, you know what I mean, of their, and thus they influence the whole nation, you know what I mean, to be patriotic. So monarchy has been the cornerstone of our existence, and precisely because understand, for example, in Lesotho, the British or the Boers have never defeated the Basotho when they were under their kings. You know, because the regimentation of the nation of Basotho, the mobilization, the organization was very high. Because of the monarchic system, which goes down up to the small chief in a small village, you know, who could be called to service at the blink of the eye, and he would report at kaBhekuzulu, you know what I mean? You know, so because of that, we were a highly organized nation. Monarchies have a tendency in Africa to organize, to put a high level of organization in nations, and that helps not only in military times when people have to go to war, but also it organized the economic development of Lesotho. Owes the Lesotho we are talking about, Lesotho under King Mushosho until King Lirotodi, was considered an economic hub in Southern Africa. That's why the Basotho are the ones who used to export grain to Kimberley. The Basotho agriculturists were even more advanced than the Boers. They exported martin to Kimberley because the economic system, the system under the monarchy, was very efficient. For example, the wheat would be grown under what was called Matzim. You know what I mean? Large scale farming. Mind you, they were not tractors. We are talking about hoeing and labor intensive, and the wealth in sheep. In fact, to the extent that a decision was made in Britain to stop importing wheat from Lesotho because the Basotho were getting too rich. And wheat then was exported from Australia. And martin, that's why Australia is where it is today. Otherwise the economy of Lesotho would have surpassed that of South Africa easily. Okay, fine, let's say South Africa there was diamonds, really, okay, there was gold. But forget not, agriculture is a real economic factor also. And so these are things that happened under the monarchies. The societies were organized, the social life was good because, small courts at the smallest of villages, was able to handle. That's why you never had too many people in prisons, in the true Lesotho. You know what I mean? Only the worst of criminals, were in prison. And the prisons were very small, I am happy that the whole thing is approached in that manner. That the king will be buried in the wee small hours of the morning by men only, in the Zulu way. It's the way that Africa should be. I rest in peace, my king, Silo. I think he has done well. I personally don't care about politics. I would say as a king, he has represented himself very well. I look at the Zulu people with envy when they are in their dress, and they are with their king, and I've seen praise poets around him. He makes me proud of Africa. He made me proud of Africa, my Africa. So it's with the deepest respect that I extend my condolences to the Zulu people in general and to his family. He was a great man. He was a great African.
Where are we heading as Africa, taking to one Africa, and maybe looking up to the kings, maybe to take us back where we were very proud as a nation?
The reality of the matter is that so far we have not had our own Berlin conference. The African kings have not sat down and drawn their Africa. So far the Africa that we find ourselves in, the geographic Africa, is the Africa that was drawn in the Berlin conference. So where I am is, sadly, very sadly, because some of us had thought that post-1994 there are going to be negotiations, kings, chiefs, finding one another and discussing the real issues of Africa. For example, we have a situation where there's been land demarcations, where some farms had been given to people, where there's been. My feeling is that even this forever troublesome border situation, which has led even to people in Lesotho having to, drowning in the river because there are border posts, where they are not going to be allowed for one reason or the other. And where I stand, I think that there is not going to be true liberation in South Africa or in Southern Africa before the kings and the chiefs of Southern Africa have settled down, sat on the table and discussed, one, the relationships of the African people. And for people to understand this, they have to understand the history of Africa. Africa needs to understand itself, because so far people have been told what they are. We do not know our history, and precisely because of that, we are always seeing ourselves as different entities, when indeed most of the Basotho are Botswana. Even the royal family that is now ruling us, they are of Mfurutsi descent. You know what I mean? So they are Botswana. So people don't know this. They don't know that Bapedi also are Botswana. Bapedi, Magolokwe, Basia, Batlokwa, they are born of Mokhatla, son of Tabani. Who is a Botswana? So because of these demarcations, and we are to blame really, because we did not change our own curricula. Even the Basotho, look, Lesotho has the most glorious history in Southern Africa. It's a fact. It's not a boast. The Basotho are the only people who have defeated every other nation, including the British and the Boers. This is a fact. But you see, people still point at Basotho as those guys across the river there, when the reality of the matter is that the cross-section, Basotho is a cross-section of each and every nationality in Southern Africa. You see, we have more than 5 Nguni nationalities in South Africa, different Ngunis. You know what I mean? We have the clans and the tribes that we call it, which including the vendors, you see, in Lesotho. You see, so they'll be calling themselves Batlong, but you hear that they are Batlong who are Nguni, and then they are Batlong who are not Nguni. You see, but we don't know these things. South Africans don't know these things, even after liberation. That's why they're able to look at other Africans and think they are different from them, because of the Berlin Conference, because of the 1910 a conference, you know what I mean? That actually made the Union of South Africa. So it is only our ignorance. It is our ignorance that makes us fight one another, jealous of one another. Or if those things are dealt with, if we are armed with our history, re-armed with our history, understand who we are, bring our kings and chiefs back to their normal space, have them discuss with us and with one another, and then and only then can we have a true Africa. For now, we're still joking. Even the land question in South Africa, the way it's being addressed, the land question, you cannot address the land question without including the kings and chiefs. From whom was that land taken from? Because Africans, individuals, never owned land. It was taken from African kings and chiefs.